Hello, my name is Andy, and today I'm responding to Jelani Singleton's claim that pursuing a college degree has minimal benefits to students. Her support for these claims are that one, the cost of college causes excessive burden on students and families, two, a degree no longer holds the same value it used to, and three, classes spend valuable time learning on non-essential, they spend valuable time on non-essential learning. So, based on deeper analysis, I've come to the conclusion that a college degree actually holds just the same amount of value as it has in the past and will continue to hold value in the future. With regards to her first claim that the cost of college causes excessive burden on students and families, she used a 2013 Sallie Mae study in which it stated it did show that 21% of the cost of college is being covered by borrowing made by both parents and students. But in that same study, it also stated that borrowing was at its lowest level that it has been in the past 5 years. In fact, 30% of the cost of college was covered by scholarships and grants, outweighing the total borrowed amount that had to be covered by parents and the student. And also, in this Sallie Mae study is released every year. So in 2016, the scholarship coverage actually went up by 3%, and student borrowing went down by 2%. Based on this flaw in her evidence, I believe that her leap of inference is actually wrong, and this excessive burden is actually an over-exaggeration of the current state of things. In response to her second claim that a degree no longer holds the same value it used to, she used, her main claim was supported by a statement made by Rita McGrath, professor at Columbia University Business School. And she stated that having a bachelor's used to be beneficial to seeking a job and being competitive in the job market. But the issue with this is that Rita McGrath is actually, she's a business school professor, so she's an expert in the field that is actually one of the most popular contested degrees in the nation. In fact, the National Center for Education Statistics stated that over 20%, or almost 20% of the 1,870,000 bachelor's degrees given in 2013 were in the field of business. So while she is an expert in her field is actually experiencing a lot more of degree inflation than any other field. Based on this, I believe that her leap of inference is a hasty generalization, simply because the main claim is being supported by the expert testimony, and this expert testimony is actually experiencing more of this problem in her specific field. Also, I found evidence suggesting that college graduates still have more and better opportunities than most. This is supported by an economic analysis made by the Hamilton Project, in which they show that in adults older than 25, the unemployment rate for people who had a college degree was actually half what that was of those people who didn't have any sort of college experience at all. My counterclaim to this specific point is that a college degree is just as valuable for job seekers as it was before, and it's going to continue to be valuable. This is shown in actually a source that she used in a paper by Richard Vedder called The 12 Inconvenient Truths About American Education. He actually says that even though more people do have college degrees, this is actually creating a weird effect where employers actually have created a new barrier to entry, in which to have simple jobs like being a bartender or being a janitor, since we have people applying who do have college degrees, people who don't have college degrees usually don't even make the first cut. So having a college degree is actually still matters a lot. In response to her third claim being that college spends too much time on non-essential learning, she uses a website publication that actually cites the same economic analysis that I mentioned earlier. And but the only problem is that in that same paper, the author argues that pursuing any sort of degree still increases a person's lifetime earnings over someone who doesn't have a degree. And also she mentions that a lot of the things that you're supposed to learn in school, you can actually learn on your own. But I actually have personal experience with this because she had mentioned programming specifically, and I'm actually a computer science major. And the problem with this is that while you can teach yourself a lot of things that you could learn in the classroom, usually employers still want to see that you have that standard of knowing certain things that not everyone knows. And this is actually this is seen easily if you have a 4-year degree as opposed to having nothing on your resume. And also a lot of the entry-level stuff for getting into fields where you don't have to go to school, it still requires you to have some sort of qualification. So usually college fills that void. The reason why this is important is because her claim can actually encourage people not to go to school, and it might make it seem like not going to school, you'll be just as fine as if you don't. If you do go to school. But the issue with this is that a lot of the claims she makes and a lot of the evidence she uses actually points towards the opposite of what she's trying to say. So if you are looking to secure your future financially, it's still a good idea to go to college. Thank you.
All right, the structural stuff is fine. The signpost on the first point is good. I thought you had some interesting statistics on the rate of loans that people have compared to the amount that's covered by scholarship. That seems to suggest a slightly different relationship than the advocate was talking about. It doesn't, it's still a chunk of cash, I suppose, so you're diminishing it to some degree. I don't know that you've actually suggested that it's not an important factor, but it certainly doesn't seem as important as the advocate originally presented. On the argument of value, by the way, that is a value claim. There's an argument here that says that the one professor that's being quoted is likely to be biased because their particular field is heavily impacted. Okay, that's a long way to go to get kind of a challenge to that particular authority. I think you were probably better off by pointing out that the things that you did on the later points, which concern how much people really look to having a college degree as being a entry-level stop or some way of measuring somebody's accomplishment. You mentioned that you thought that, for example, that particular challenge was a hasty generalization. To me, it sounds like a sweeping generalization that the professor is making in that case. All right, and then, like I said, you talked about the unemployment rate being lower for college graduates and non-college graduates when they're over 25. I thought that was a good piece of counter evidence. Then there's also the argument that talks about how it's measurable, and having a degree has become a new barrier to entry-level jobs. Whether we like it or not, I guess that's a reality. I do think you need to support it a little bit more. It's a general claim, and it seems to probably be a reasonable interpretation. The source that you cited, I think, needs to be qualified a little bit more, but you did cite a source there. And then on the last point, you talk about lifetime earnings. I was waiting for some statistical information. I didn't really get any, so that seemed a little bit problematic. But I thought that you had generally good counterclaims. You had one argument about the reasoning on that middle point. I do think you need to engage some of the evidence that the advocate used a little bit more. You're basically saying that they've reached kind of the opposite conclusion that you're reaching from the same sort of information. And I think that's an interesting point. That means that it's all about the reasoning process and not about the evidence. So I think you need to go into the reasoning a little bit more. All right, thank you. Kelsey.